What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And on today's video we are looking at a shoe that has been wildly popular in HOKA's line. This is the latest update to the Rincon. This is the Rincon 4, and in a nutshell it still offers what it always has. It is very lightweight, it's affordable, but is it the shoe for you? Let's get into it. Alright guys, full disclosure, HOKA was good enough to send me this pair of the Rincon 4 for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say, they don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. With that said, you're going to be able to pick up a pair of the HOKA Rincon 4 for only $125. And right off the bat, that is a very good price, especially because it hasn't gone up from last year. And yet there are a lot of changes in this model. Alright, in the men's version of the Rincon 4, we have 37 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot. In the women's version, we have 36 in the heel, 31 in the forefoot, both for a 5mm drop. Now that's an additional 3mm of stack height over the Rincon 3, so you're getting just a little more protection. Now HOKA claims that in a US men's size 9, the Rincon 4 would tip the scale at 8.04 ounces or 228 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 12.5, it tips the scale at 9.7 ounces or 276 grams. Now in the sample size, the Rincon 4 is 10 grams heavier than the Rincon 3. And that probably has a lot to do with that extra stack height and another addition that they made to the midsole, but we'll get there. But when I did say that this is a men's size 12.5, just to be totally upfront, in HOKA's I do tend to drop half a size. In most shoes I wear a men's US size 13, but in HOKA's I found that I do have to go down to a 12.5 and it just fits me a lot better. Now in the Rincon 4, I think 12.5 was the right size for me. However, I did find that the toe box was just a little narrow. And I say a little narrow, it was narrow. When I was running, I could definitely feel that pressure on my little toe, and I tend to think that I have narrow feet. So right off the bat, if you are a wide-footed runner, I don't think the Rincon 4 is going to be right for you. But if you have narrow feet and you like slim shoes, keep watching. Now because this shoe is only $125, it's difficult to find competition. I think it's comparable to something like the Adidas SL2, which costs $130, so $5 more than the Rincon 4. And the SL2 is just a little heavier in my size. It weighs in at 10.2 ounces or 290 grams. So that's 14 grams heavier than the Rincon 4. And in my hands, that 14 grams is noticeable. Okay, next up, we have the Brooks Hyperion 2. And I really think that these are only comparable because they are both lightweight, non-plated trainers. But remember, the Rincon 4 is $125. The Brooks Hyperion 2 is $140. And to be perfectly honest, that $140 price point really is the next level. And for that extra $15, you are getting a little lighter shoe. The Hyperion 2 tips the scale at 8.5 ounces or 241 grams in my size. That's 35 grams lighter than the Rincon 4. Next up, we have the New Balance Rebel V4, also costing $140, and also slightly lighter. The Rebel V4 tips the scale at 9.1 ounces or 257 grams, so that's 14 grams lighter than the Rincon 4. Really, the last two shoes, the Rebel and the Hyperion 2, are more comparable to the HOKA Mark 6. Now the HOKA Mark 6 is like the next step up from the Rincon 4. And the Mark 6 is $140 also. And when these two go head to head, in my size, the Mark 6 weighs in at 9.9 ounces or 282 grams. So the Mark 6 in my size is 6 grams more than the Rincon 4. Oh, and one more difference between these two. In the Mark 6, you are getting a supercritical EVA, whereas the Rincon 4 is using HOKA's compression molded EVA. Okay, so let's start at the top and work our way down. Going to hold this up so you can see that. Got some good padding coming around the heel collar, just as we would expect. The shoe is made for comfort. The heel counter is very rigid. I didn't have any heel slip issues in the Rincon 4. Had a nice step-in feel. Now for the Rincon 4's upper, HOKA is using a double jacquard engineered mesh, and it is very breathable. Or I should say breathable enough. When I'm testing these shoes here in Florida, everything gets very wet and sweaty, but it didn't feel like the Rincon 4 was overly warm. So that's a good thing. That's basically what I'm looking for. The tongue on the Rincon 4 is medium in thickness. It's totally not over the top. Now the tongue is not gusseted, but they do have a lace loop right here in the middle, and that lace loop prevented any tongue migration on the run. If we just look at the overlays, HOKA is using very minimal overlays here on the Rincon 4. We've got the HOKA branding, got the bird on the medial side, of course a little reinforcement coming along the eyelet chain just to strengthen that up, and then that's about it. There is an overlay right here on the front. I think that's just for aesthetics, and then there is an underlay around the toe box just to help keep that upper off your foot. Now it's time to come down to the midsole. Now, as I already said, HOKA is using their compression molded EVA, but unlike past Rincons, the midsole in the Rincon 4 is a dual density setup. We do have that compression molded EVA. On my colorway you can see that is the white, and then on the base we have a rubberized EVA, and that is what HOKA has replaced the outsole rubber with. So we do have a fairly thin layer of rubberized EVA, but it is enough to be considered part of the midsole. And then you can see on the bottom there is no rubber, it is just that EVA. And I have to say that I am definitely a fan of rubberized EVA outsoles. I just think they ride very smooth, they're very quiet. They also contribute to a feeling of softness on the run. Like if I was a burglar, I would go with a shoe with a rubberized EVA outsole, because you are just sneaking around. Now I know with the advancement of midsole foams, a lot of you tend to discount a compression molded EVA, but I want to remind you of the price. The HOKA RINCON 4 is only $125. That definitely places it in the entry level of running shoes. And for an entry level running shoe, the RINCON 4 offers a lot, especially if you have narrow feet. Oh, one other thing to mention about the sizing of the RINCON 4, I found it to be a very low profile shoe. You know how some shoes are just big and they wrap around your foot, and even the heel collar seems high and just everything seems bulky? That is not the case with the RINCON 4. I found it to be almost a very small shoe. So what is the RINCON 4 like to run in? Well, it's been a couple years since I've run in the RINCON, and I do remember that the last time I ran in the RINCON, I ran into the same issue with the narrow toe box, you know, that feeling on my little toe. But I tend to remember that the RINCON that I ran in before seemed a little snappier. But I do recognize that my memories cannot be trusted, because a lot of years have passed since I've run in the RINCON, and in those years we've had a lot of advancement in the running industry, and that advancement comes with better foams, better uppers, lighter shoes. So what was considered snappy back then is not the same today. And I found that when I put on the RINCON 4 and went out for a run, it was very comfortable. There is a nice step-in feel. The shoe locks down nice. Again, it's a great value for $125. I felt like the only thing that made this shoe snappy or fast this time was the weight. The shoe does disappear on your foot, but other than that, with a 37-32 stack height, to me the RINCON 4 fits more in the line of a very inexpensive daily trainer. Now, I do know that previous RINCONs have had a little trouble with their longevity. I know a lot of people have said that once they get to a couple hundred kilometers, the shoe just feels dead, and I'm wondering if that is why HOKA has added that rubberized EVA here on the base, hoping that's going to make a difference. Now, when I look at the base of my shoe, I am seeing quite a bit of wear on this rubberized EVA, and that's totally to be expected. Every shoe that I've had with a rubberized EVA outsole tends to wear down very quickly, but there is a lot on here. And because there is a lot of rubberized EVA outsole, you have a lot to wear down before you're actually going to be getting to the compression molded EVA. So I tend to think that the RINCON 4 is one of those shoes that's going to look like it's got a lot of wear on it, even though it still has a lot of life left in it. And I do have to tell you that when I review shoes, I make sure to get 50 kilometers in them. So a lot of my shoe reviews are done after 50 kilometers. Sometimes I put a few more miles in, but generally I start to think about the review after about 50 kilometers. And I will tell you that that is not enough time to give you a long-term review of this shoe. But now I want to hear from you. Have you ever run in a HOKA RINCON? If you have, what are your thoughts? If you haven't, are you thinking about picking up a pair after watching this video? Remember, $125. But for now, it's Matt V. This has been my review of the HOKA RINCON 4. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.